IBS is a label that they give you that tells you what you just told them you have. My bowel's kind of irritable. Hey, you have irritable bowel syndrome. I just told you that. What do you mean? Right? To me, that's like, it's like the most bogus kind of diagnosis.
It's a garbage diagnosis.
Yeah.
Anytime they put syndrome on the end of something, that means they don't know what it is.
No clue.
Yeah, no clue. They'll just put the first couple words like, these play into it, and then syndrome. Ta-da! So that's basically what it was. They kind of ruled out super scary stuff like IBD, which is irritable bowel disease, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's.
Welcome to the Full Field Podcast with your host, Matt Tack.
What's up, man?
Who are you?
I'm Dr. Alfred Leslie.
Oh, there we go.
They know by now, bro. They know by now. You give a method.
Love it.
Well, we also have a very, very accomplished and decorated guest on the show today. Past classmate of mine in chiropractic school, good friend, Dr. Anya Szigeti. Said that correct?
Szigeti.
Szigeti. The Z is silent, so pardon the butcher there. Dr. Anya Szigeti is a holistic functional doctor and the founder of Back to Health Functional Medicine. She is the creator of the Szigeti Method and the best-selling author of You Can't Outrun Your Fork. Dr. Anya is passionate about empowering, educating, and equipping others to take charge of their own health so they can prosper, thrive, and live a life they love. Dr. Anya is here on the show to dispel the myths and set the record straight when it comes to fancy marketing gimmicks and provide insight on what is actually beneficial for our health and what is actually dangerous for us to consume. Dr. Anya, right? Last time I saw you. Welcome to Full Fueled. We're so glad to have you on the show.
Awesome
Welcome
to be here.
to
Thank you
Full
so
Fueled.
much.
Yes, ma'am. It's a pleasure.
We're super excited. One thing I noticed about you as soon as I met you, I'm like, wow, this woman has amazing energy. So I just want to compliment you right off the bat.
you.
You can feel it. So it's cool. We're excited that you're here with us today. If you could just give us a little background on kind of the story of what led you into functional medicine and then also what led you into becoming an author. So we're excited to dig deep, but if you just give a little background on yourself.
Yes, absolutely. So I think a lot of folks that find themselves in the holistic space have their own health journey that they went on. And that was my story too. Mm-hmm. So a little bit of a short version of my story is I was active duty military. And then when I got out of the service, I was a surgical medical device sales rep for a corporate America company. And with that job comes a lot of stress, a lot of travel. At the same time, I was also training for and competing in Ironman triathlons and ultra marathons, the longest being 50 miles. So, yeah, that's a fun day.
That's a freaking long race, man.
And the Ironman also, 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike, and then a full marathon at the end.
Insane. Do they call you an Iron Woman?
A lot of people call me an Iron Woman.
You're
yes.
an Iron
You
Woman.
are Iron
All right,
Woman.
love that.
You got the tat?
I have the tat.
You have the tat. All right,
yeah.
you're official.
Yes,
She's legit.
Yes. That's the fourth part of the triathlon, is getting the tattoo.
That's right. You got to finish first, right?
You gotta finish first. Yeah, and I'm crazy enough to do too. So I'm doing all of that. Those are my hobbies, right? That's my stress relief. And while working in corporate America. And so as I progressed with my career, they rewarded me with promotion and more territory. So originally I was covering the state of Florida, and then they kept adding states. So then I was covering 11 states in the Southeast. So this, as a regional sales manager, I'm going around to different locations, up to 4 different locations in a week. Like, that's a lot of travel. And so, I'm stressed. I'm running around like crazy. I'm, taking a 4 a.m. flight out, coming back that night, go to another location the next day. So I made a lot of compromises when it came to my health, primarily nutrition, because, airport food, hotel food, it's not the best quality.
It's garbage.
It's garbage, yes, exactly. So I was putting garbage in, and then I was also really pushing my body to extreme limits and not fueling it properly. And so I actually got really, really sick. And sick in the definition of just feeling exhausted, digestive issues. I mean, I used to keep a note in my phone.
So you were doing all this and still training for ultra marathons.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes,
All right.
and Ironman. Yeah. Yep. Yes.
Burning it at all ends.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sleep was terrible. Stress off the charts. Nutrition terrible. Hormones in the garbage, like just everything, just totally wrecking myself as best I could, as quickly as possible. So, so I had, all the digestive issues. And as I was saying, I used to keep a note in my phone of all the symptoms that I had because it was coming everywhere. People are like, oh, what did you start with? I don't know, because I started to just kind of ignore it, right? I think we all do that. We get some pain, we'll take a pill. We have digestive issues, we take a pill. Or, whatever. Because we have to keep going, right? We have to keep performing. And so I really started to just feel this and not be able to hide from it anymore. And so I went to my doctor, and she ran my blood work, and she says, "Oh, everything's normal."
Air quotes. I like the air quotes there. That's
yes,
like
normal.
Yeah.
I'm like, how can everything be normal? I feel like complete garbage. Like, how is that possible? And now I realize that that's unfortunately quite common. That a lot of people will go and get a very basic panel done, and it doesn't really show anything. So there has to be a deeper dive. And so I actually turned into my own health advocate and researched about what could be causing this. And I went back to my doctor and I was like pushing her, like, can you run these additional tests? Can you check in deeper to see what's going on? And thankfully she did, after a little bit of persuading. I'm not very persuasive at all. So, she just was like, oh, sure, whatever. And we found that I had antibodies to my thyroid, and my thyroid was underperforming. But she tells me, you're not sick enough to medicate yet. So we're just going to wait until you get sicker, and then we'll medicate you for the rest of your life.
Healthcare, baby. That's what we call healthcare in this country, right there.
That's what we're paying for, right there.
Yeah, it's backwards for sure.
Yes, yeah. So
while on the outside, though, you probably still look pretty good.
I think so. I mean, I have pictures. I was ripped. I mean, but I was still throwing Snickers in my little bags in between my events because that's what I use. That was what I look forward to on the bike is to have a Snickers.
Because you didn't have the newts.
I didn't have the newts. I didn't. I just
where were you, Maddie?
About this.
Need
Come
the
on,
newts.
man.
Need the newts.
I needed you. Where were you?
That's why we're here now.
Yes, exactly. So I look back at that time, and of course, in the moment, I'm frustrated. I'm feeling helpless and hopeless. But I'm thankful for it now because that's what led me to find holistic functional medicine. Yeah. And I actually worked with a doctor out in Colorado back before, the virtual thing was the cool thing to do. And we took a deep dive. I mean, we tore apart my diet, my lifestyle, made some major modifications, added in some supplementation. And then I go back to my doctor in 3 months, right? She has her prescription pad out because I'm supposed to get worse because we've never done it. We haven't done anything. And she's like, wait a minute, your labs are getting better. What are you doing? So I'm like, I'm doing this and that. Like,
I'm healing, baby. Yeah.
And she's just like, yeah, whatever. Just keep doing it.
I'm sleeping.
Yeah, I'm actually sleeping. Yeah. She's like, just keep doing it. It seems to be working. Totally brushed me off. But I didn't care because that made such a transformative effect of my health and my life. I vividly remember going home to my husband, my boyfriend at the time. And I was like, hey, so I'm going to quit this really lucrative job and go to school with people that are a little younger than me. It's fine. And that's where I met Alfred. And, just really dedicate my life to this. So I did the chiropractic doctorate. I also did the certification for acupuncture and the 300-hour diplomate in internal medicine, functional medicine, all at the same time.
Wow. Killing it. Yeah.
That's
more than what I was doing. I was just
That's crushing it. That's making a change right there.
Yeah.
How cool is that? Can you, this might be a little like swaying off topic, but how imperative was sleep in that time frame? Like where you made, or what was one thing that you just made right off the bat that was like you felt like kind of was the tipping point in that change or in that mental shift?
Well, sleep was super important, so we can definitely dive into that more.
Okay.
But if we look at nutrition, one thing that I changed that was significant for me was actually consuming healthy fats. That made a big difference because I was consuming all the garbage, labeled gluten-free on the front, processed, packaged, I don't even call that food anymore because that's not nourishing the body. And so I was eating all the garbage, oils and unhealthy fats and trans fats and all that stuff. And when I switched to actually healthy fats and nourishing my body, starting to rebuild my hormones and all those it's amazing. That was life-changing for me.
Huge. That's one thing that's been, we've been honestly focusing. So we have a third pouch we're working on right now with a food scientist, but was kind of that understanding when you go into a race, how important fats are for that mindset, for that kind of the early onset of like that pre-nutrition, that intra-nutrition and the post-nutrition of how you're doing that. But I treat it every day like a race. And how are we treating every day going into that? How are you getting the appropriate fats maybe early in the morning to get that mind moving when you're coming out of your circadian rhythm and going into your ultradians throughout the day? So that's one thing that has been really a shift for me over really the past 5 years is I set a bedtime routine and then I go to bed at it's a non-negotiable for me now. I just go to bed at 9:30 and like my wife and like we have family in town right now. I'll be like, where's Matt? You know, and they of course know I'm in bed because
Optimizing.
I'm optimizing. Like I need to make sure my circadian rhythm stays in that cycle so that when I get up in the morning, my body's prepared to be well optimized. So I love that. That's so crucial in understanding kind of the fat load. But if we can, and I know Alfie has, I have so many different questions. But
I want to kind of stick to the, like a little bit to your story and kind of, you know, what you were experiencing. Obviously you said it was a thyroid issue. That was the diagnosis, but we know as functional medicine doctors, there's a root cause, right? Yes. And so you focus a lot on gut health with what you do with your practice and maybe break down some of this a little bit nerdy for the audience. We have people who listen that are into that. How does the gut affect the thyroid, right? Like what is that combination, or why does that matter? Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. So if we look at, my official diagnosis is Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is autoimmune hypothyroid. And so if we back up to the gut issues that I had for a decade and a half, bounced around to a lot of different specialists, you know, eventually diagnosed with the gut issues of IBS because they couldn't figure out anything else that was wrong necessarily. They just said, oh, maybe go gluten-free and maybe take a probiotic. That might work.
And IBS is a label that they give you that tells you what you just told them you have. My bowel's kind of irritable. Hey, you have irritable bowel syndrome. I just told you that. What do you mean? Right? To me, that's like, it's like the most bogus kind of diagnosis.
It's a garbage diagnosis. Yeah. Anytime they put syndrome on the end of something, that means they don't know what it is. Really.
No clue.
Yeah, no clue. They'll just put the first couple words like these play into it and then syndrome. Ta-da. Yeah. So that's basically what it was. They kind of ruled out super scary stuff like IBD, which is irritable bowel disease, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's. They ruled out some of those scarier things. They tested me for celiac disease, which is the autoimmune gluten allergy. So, you know, we ruled out those sorts of things, but I still was having a lot of issues. And so knowing what I know now, that was part of the pathogenesis of my autoimmune condition. And so with the inflammation within my gut, that set up the foundation for leaky gut or increased intestinal permeability, if you want to find it in the medical literature. That's what they call it now. So what that does is that actually opens up the tight junctions of the gut lining. Yeah. And so whenever I would eat inflammatory foods, we'll use gluten as an example for this. I don't want to make it the villain, but it does play a role. That gluten protein isn't supposed to be in my systemic circulation. And so it was able to pass through those larger openings in my gut lining. And then my body recognized that as foreign, as an enemy. And so it built up this immune army to attack those gluten proteins. Now, the problem is gluten protein is very similar in amino acid sequence to thyroid tissue. There it is. Yep. And so that's what I just did. Every time I consumed gluten, I built up an army and attacked my own thyroid. So I did that for who knows how long. There's research out that autoimmune and other chronic diseases have a 10, 12, 15 year timeline that they're building in your body. These don't happen overnight. Yeah. And so that's a big piece of my own health journey is, one, trying my best to avoid gluten as much as possible because it's literally in everything. And even gluten-free products are cross-contaminated in the agriculture process, the way we farm in this country, genetic modification, and then the manufacturing process. There's a lot of I can't even say the word today. Cross-contamination there to the point where testing was done on the top selling gluten-free items, and I'm using quotes again. The pizza crust, pasta, and bread, and over 50% actually contain gluten.
And they're supposed to be gluten-free.
They're supposed to be 100% gluten-free, and they're at least 50% or over 50% have gluten in them. So that's terrifying for someone who has a celiac allergy, because that could be, very, very detrimental to their health. Yeah. But then it's not good for someone who has, an autoimmune condition, especially one where gluten is triggering those reactions inside your body. And so healing leaky gut, avoiding gluten, making sure my thyroid's getting the nutrients that it needs as well, all super important in my own personal healing journey.
Yeah, and honestly, my take on disease is, especially like these chronic diseases or these long, like pathogenic diseases that take time to build up, is like, think of your body like a bucket, and the bucket's filling up with water, and a little bit of gluten in there starts to raise that bucket up, and then some toxins from the environment, right? Chlorine in our tap water, lack of sleep, stress, burning it at both ends. Your bucket starts to fill up. When the bucket overflows, right? And you might feel okay. When the bucket overflows, signs, symptoms, disease state, right?
Yes.
And so it's like, we talk a lot about like preventative health, obviously, you as well. Like, how do we empty the bucket a little bit, right? And that's where it's like the diet, removing the gluten, right? And that bucket starts to lower back down. You can get health back. Right?
Exactly. And I have a lot of people that are like, well, I used to be able to do all these things. And that goes back to the bucket analogy. Well, yeah, you used to be able to because your bucket was half full then.
Yeah.
And now it's overflowing. So we need to do some work there. I also find that most people don't have the symptoms until their body is less than 60% of optimal function. I know that we all like to work in the realm of optimal function. And so even though if we don't have an overt symptom, that doesn't mean we're performing at 90% or 95% of optimal function. That means we might be teetering right on that 61%. So that's where prevention and doing the things every day to really optimize your health is super, super important.
100%. And so then what's the protocol in your practice? Testing, herbal supplements, I'm guessing, right? Like heal and repair the gut. Can you give like a little overview or kind of like your process?
Absolutely. So I look at each individual as unique because everyone is definitely very, very unique. And so I do a deep dive into, specific health history, the factors that brought you to where you are today. I look to see where, different places in your health journey you might have gone off track because it's not a straight A to B line ever. We're always, taking little ebbs and flows. We look at those because those are going to give me some information because, again, you might not have outward symptoms of different imbalances, but there may be some there just from your own health journey. So I want to look at those, obviously taking the time to really talk with the patient and understand their experiences. I have them fill out very, very detailed paperwork to get a better understanding of them. And then we look at different diagnostic testing. So I have the availability to test just about everything, which is fantastic. But I try to really laser focus it into, the main issues that I feel are affecting that patient's health today. And of course, things that are going to be, if we don't address them or identify them, issues for the long term.
Right.
And so then we use lifestyle, nutrition, big focus, potent nutraceuticals to help to remove, infections and imbalances and address deficiencies to help to bring the body back into balance.
Yeah. And so what would be like the main two tests you say you run? I mean, you do stool tests.
Stool test is probably one of the biggest ones because, as Hippocrates says, all disease begins in the gut. I believe that your health begins in your gut. So that's a big focus that I want to make sure that we are optimizing right off the bat, because if we have imbalances there, literally nothing else we do is going to matter. Because if we're using, nutrition, which is my long-term goal with everybody, then if you have imbalances, you don't have enough hydrochloric acid or stomach acid, you don't have enough digestive enzymes, you have inflammation, you have dysbiosis, infections, then you're not going to be able to properly process and absorb all the nutrients that you need to be able to rebuild your body. And so that's a big step. And then just blood work as well. I mentioned the basic panels can give us some information, but they often don't give enough. So I do a really detailed, again, customized panel on every one of my patients.
Yeah, we're big on like biomarkers, right? Like knowing like your individual biomarkers versus just like your blood work, your CBCs, right? That tells you a little bit's important, but
it's important. I don't think that people get those tested enough in reality. I think a lot of people will come to me and like, I haven't gone to a doctor in 20 years. And I'm like, okay, well, so we're starting from scratch.
Step
but
one. Yeah.
Step one, we have a little bit of work to do. Yeah. I think it's important to understand, your own body and where you are and where you're starting from and in correlation to how you're feeling and what symptoms that you're having as well, so that we know where to take effect and where we need to prioritize our energy.
That's awesome. What walk us through then, because you're probably walking us through a little bit of this right now, but the Szigeti Method. So you have actually a method that you operate. Clarify it for me too. I always try to look at people not as like robots, but like there's very small differentiations of like who we are, right? We have our personalities, which I think are impacted obviously by like these major lifestyle changes, but there's a lot of redundancies in humans that we see. So maybe that's why you put together like kind of a method together, because our habit structures typically align that way. But if you could just dive deep into a little bit of what you have programmed into that method.
Yes, absolutely. So I find that when someone commits to something, they have a much better outcome. So the Szigeti Method is actually my membership program. And so with that method, I cover the 12 foundations of health. And so that's going to include, kind of like you alluded to, all the different areas that we each need to make sure we're fully optimizing in our own health. Whether or not that might be an overt, issue for you that drew you to my office, we're still going to work on it. And so the first one right off the bat is mindset. So if we don't have our mind right, then nothing matters. Deep dive into your why. Like, why do you want to be healthier? Why are you going on this journey? Like, what does it mean for you? What's your ideal outcome? And then again, we dive into all the other pieces. Sleep is a big one. So we talk about sleep hygiene, and that's starting from the moment you wake up, and it goes all the way till the moment you go to sleep. All the things you can do to optimize your sleep throughout that time frame. Because I don't know about you, but if I don't get a good night's sleep, you don't even want to talk to me the next day. Like, I'm a monster.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, sleep is just that. I one thing I just have loved really about sleep is that people, exactly what you were tapping into there, is that people don't understand that, like, throughout the entire day, you're actually prepping for sleep. Like, your body is prepping itself for
Starts
sleep.
first thing in the morning, as soon as your eyes wake up, or eyes open.
Yeah. So really, I feel like I didn't have really a mind-body connection until I started prioritizing sleep and being like, okay, my body is actually telling me something, and I have to listen to it. And so then, okay, well, and then I got like super nerdy, just diving into like what my circadian rhythm, like, okay, these delta waves are happening. My body heat and core index is changing and fluctuating throughout the night. Like, how do I need to understand that to get the proper amount of REM to then develop a like more tangible focus and I become more optimal during the day? Like, I don't, like, this is what I also found, like, I don't need to work nearly as hard if I become optimal in my flow states and really understand my ultradian rhythms of like, okay, like, I can break now. Like, it's cool to break now because my body, I prepped it for that flow state and to get through that. But it that's been a crucial piece in our optimizers program that we have geared towards obviously men, is really understanding that sleep narrative of like how we can become more optimal through that process. So I love that you focus on that.
And I mean, being optimal is like getting the most accomplished and being the most efficient for the least amount of expended energy, right? And that's like what we focus on, is like, how do we get better results with less? And that's what we do with guys. Like, we're like, dude, you're doing way too much. You thought you had to do all this stuff. You're killing yourself, right? Because we're all day we're in a state of catabolism. Our body's like breaking down to rebuild. But if you're not sleeping, you're not rebuilding, right? So then you're just breaking down even more, right? And that was
a badge of honor that was really pushed on me in the military and corporate America.
Sleep when you're dead, right?
Exactly. How much can you do on the least amount of sleep? And who can send the first email in the morning and who can send the last email at night? Like, it was almost this competition of how bad can you basically tear your body down and how productive can you still be at the end of the day? Like, it's just such a bizarre mindset to look back on that. So I think it's awesome that you really focus on the opportunity and the permission to give yourself a break and to really focus on the things that are going to rebuild and nourish your body so that you can perform at the highest level. Because I feel like it doesn't matter how much money you have. If you don't have your health, you are basically poor. Like, it doesn't matter. We
had a guy in one of our men's group say he actually does. Have you ever heard of PEMF therapy?
Mm-mm.
Wild stuff. So it's an electronic. It's more like the TENS machine.
Okay.
But it basically combines like the TENS with massaging. So I had body work done yesterday. It's pretty incredible. We'll have to introduce you to Jake. He's a good guy. But it's he said this, and it's like really stuck home. The best ability is availability. If I'm not available, like, and so many people, and I had to go, like, I still go through this in ebbs and flows, but like some days I'm not available. And if I don't get that proper sleep, I'm honing in on sleep, I feel like right now, but I'm not going to be available for my wife. I'm not going to be available for my kids.
Exactly.
Which, like, if I get to the end of my life and I wasn't available for them, what good was it? Right. At the end of the day. So I think that's crucial. Can you, you're an author now too. Like, how do you fit it up? Like, how do you fit it all in? Let's be serious. So you are an author. Can you tell us a little bit about your book? I've heard of the book, and I am absolutely going to be reading it. But I would love for you to just kind of brief it, and then we're going to deploy it to the audience, but it's right in front of us.
Awesome. Yeah. So this book is actually a 3-part. So one part, I elaborate more on my own health struggles, because as I was going through my journey, I realized that we all have a health journey. And as I mentioned during mine, I felt hopeless and helpless at certain points. And so I wanted to share what I went through to hopefully provide some hope to someone else who's also struggling, because I know a lot of people are. The second part is a lot of education around the quality of nutrition and the importance of that in our own health. And so that's, as I mentioned, with even just the healthy fat piece, I do dive into healthy fats, but also elaborate on the best types of meat to eat, the best types of produce, and just the things to avoid, the things to eat. So I definitely dive deep into those. And then I really want to reinvigorate that passion and the understanding of the fact that if we prepare and make our own food that we're consuming, that whole process dives into our health. The act of preparing our own food, that preps our digestive process.
100%.
And that is so missed in this country. Purchasing food from DoorDash, or, I don't want to badmouth different companies, but if we hand over our food preparation to someone else, we're handing over control of our health to someone else, because they're a business. So unfortunately, most businesses aren't going to use the highest quality ingredients. So they're going to use the cheaper oils that are inflammatory to our bodies.
Increase margins by lowering the...
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're going to add sugar so that it's addictive, so that you buy more. And all these things are detrimental to your health. So I put in about 100 of my favorite delicious, easy to make recipes that have ingredients that anybody can find. I've made them in, all different studio kitchens around the Tampa Bay area for different TV shows, just to show that these foods are so easy to make and accessible, and they're delicious, and they have enormous impacts on our health. And so this is actually my COVID baby. When the world shut down, I wrote a book. I had the idea when we were in school, and then, when everything kind of shut down, it just really gave me the time and space to process it. And I'll be fully transparent. The first draft I wrote was garbage. My publisher basically threw it back at me and told me to rewrite it, because I wrote a standard operating procedure. I'm very military minded, and I was like, do this, don't do that. And they were like, no, we need story. We need context with it as well.
I found that, in just being in this career and meeting other docs and stuff, the best docs who get people the healthiest or get people the best results are the ones who had some kind of struggle, and their story is where they're coming from, right? They have that empathetic heart for them, right? Like anyone can learn something and then teach it to people and just push it on others. But it's when you feel like your doc's I've been there, right? When patients come in here with excruciating nerve pain, I'm like, I had that, man. My shoulder was freaking jacked, and I had the worst pain you can imagine. So I get it. I get what pain feels like. Yeah. And so it's then they're like, hey, he's here with me, right? Versus he's going to tell me what to do.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. The empathy piece, I think, is again lacking in this country. And to be able to say that I've walked a few steps in your shoes and I've been there and I get it is a huge difference between me and a lot of the other doctors that are out there. And then I was a patient too. I was a patient for a decade and a half. So I went through all
you saw what didn't work.
The BS that they're going through right now, and that they're pulling their hair out and they're so frustrated with. And I'm like, I get it. That's why I'm doing what I do. And
so, okay, so the recipes, is it mostly, because it's propped open right here, and I can see this one, Power Cave.
Cave,
yes,
that's Hungarian.
Like a coffee drink or something?
That's coffee. That's how I make my coffee.
I'm going to have to do that. Big coffee guy.
It's awesome. I love coffee. So coffee is one of the highest pesticide contents. I
was about to say moldy.
Moldy. So the sourcing, right off the bat, first thing in the morning that most people drink is coffee or some sort of caffeinated beverage. You want to, again, make sure that's the highest quality. So full confession, sometimes I'll not have breakfast for a period of time, and we can talk about intermittent fasting and all those fun things too. But sometimes I'm just not hungry in the morning. But I want to have my coffee, and I want to make sure that everything I'm consuming is of the highest quality. So I put in very high quality grass-fed whey collagen grass-fed collagen into my coffee. I put sun fiber, so I get 6 grams of fiber in my coffee. And then I alternate between either a grass-fed butter or a plant-based butter, but I use that term very loosely because there's a lot of bad marketing around plant-based. This particular brand is organic cashew, and coconut oil. And so it's again highest quality, and
What's
it gives
the brand?
It's called, I'm going to pronounce it wrong, Myokos.
Cool.
And you can get it at Sprouts.
Big butter guy, man. I think butter's a health food.
Oh, I
honestly.
love butter, but sometimes I feel like I'm eating a little bit too much animal products, so I like to do like a fluctuation thing. So like I'll do a month or two of this, a month or two of that, and kind of go back and forth between it to make sure I'm still getting all the nutrients. But
and that's a good point to like being intuitive, right? So like what you just said is basically the term is intuitive fasting. You woke up, you're like, I'm not really hungry. I don't have to force myself to eat today. Or like days where you're like, man, I'm hungry. I probably should eat. Or days where you're like, I probably should have some more carbs today. I kind of killed it yesterday. Or like maybe I should be more protein today. I worked out hard, right? And so like being able to be present and so intuitive to your body that you can sense what it needs, right?
Absolutely.
Most people are like, why am I thirsty all the time? You're freaking dehydrated. Like, like listen,
like
bro.
95% of Americans.
Drink some freaking water. Yeah.
And I know that the majority of your audience is men, but when you talk about fasting, I do want to touch on that there's a lot of research out now that women shouldn't fast the same as men. And so
let's go.
Yeah, I don't want to dive too deep into it, but just to touch on the fact that you're mentioning like different carbs at different times, different fats at different times. So primarily for women who are cycling, in the second phase of their cycle, the luteal phase, they really shouldn't be doing any aggressive fasting. That's when the body is building up hormones. If you do a significant fast during that period of time, you're going to tank your hormones.
Yeah. Or like busy moms. They got 3 kids. They're taking them to school. Then they're working and all this. And then they're fasting. It's like, let's just add another stress to our body, right?
Exactly.
Fasting is a positive stress.
Yes.
But maybe in that time of life, it's not the best for you.
We need to optimize elsewhere. And I actually, the majority of my female patients aren't eating enough.
Yeah.
So they need more healthy
Most people,
fats.
yeah.
They need more healthy fats. They need more high quality protein. They don't need less. And so that's why, again, I'm starting my day with high quality protein, with healthy fats. I actually throw a little bit of pink Himalayan sea salt in there to make sure I have my electrolytes going. And again, I'll pulse in and out different types of organic mushroom powders as well, different blends of mushrooms to see for adaptogenic health too.
And what you're doing a lot of, right, and like kind of on the intro I said, is like you're flipping the narrative to what it should be versus like what we've been told. And it's like, why is science always changing? You know, it should be evolving, but you got to listen to who's pushing it. The government says fat's bad, salt is bad, like all this stuff. It's like, is it right? We're starting to find that like you need sodium, right? Your body, where sodium goes, water flows, right?
Yes.
Remember that analogy?
Oh, yeah.
And so it's like to be hydrated, you do need those electrolytes. Fat's not bad. Fat's what our brain is made out of. So if you want a functioning brain, you should have some fat in your diet.
And if you're exhausted, you need some fat.
That's
it
right.
Helps fuel our bodies.
100%.
So yes, follow where the source is and follow the money. Who's paying
who's
for
funding
the research?
What's the agenda?
It's so sad if people are like, oh, there's a study behind it. That's great. Who paid for the study?
Yeah. If you want to hear your question answered live on the show, submit it to ask@fullfuel.com. Check out the Optimizers program where we build max muscle, improve longevity, and get guys freaking shredded so that they can crush it at life for as long as possible.
Live full fueled, live beyond limits, baby.
I call those the study Nazis, people that are just like, so trust the science. It's all about the science. I'm like, dude, like a lot of studies can be like skewed to fit the result they're trying to get. If you really look into the study, you're like, man, they picked these people from a specific area. Like, I know you're big on the blue zones, and I am too. I agree with it. But they cherry picked a lot of the data for like certain populations in certain places, right? And only use these people, whatever. I'm not going to go too deep on that. But again, to your point, it's like, do your own research, be your own health advocate, which is what you did and what you do. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then figure out where your specific imbalances are. So that's why I do the very customized diagnostic testing, because you're going to have a completely different, if we'll go for the gut, for example, gut microbiota than Dr. Alessi. Totally different. Even though you guys work together and around each other, totally different. If you travel internationally, it's going to be different. If you have a pet, it's going to be different. If you have a spouse or a partner, it's going to be totally different. If you have kids, it's going to be different.
My identical twin sons probably have different gut microbiomes,
Yes.
and their genetics are identical. They
Yes.
came from the same
Yes.
DNA, right? So like that goes to show you. There's studies on that too. 2 twins, one lives this kind of lifestyle, one lives the other way. They're identical twins. Guts are totally different. One becomes obese and inflamed. The other is a healthy person. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's where genetics used to be scientifically, I'm using lots of air quotes today, was a crutch that people would use. They say, oh, I'm genetically predisposed
Freaking hate that.
for this.
Yeah.
And then that study really blew that apart and said, no, you have control over so many different aspects of your health that you can, impact every single day. So that's empowering.
Epigenetics. Yeah.
So empowering.
That's powerful. One thing that I think I've like really noticed to myself of having the mind-body connection was my nutrients like during the day of the days that I actually have like a workout. So we worked out this morning, but I also knew I had a podcast, right? And so I wanted to stay light. So I'm gonna actually I'm gonna load up on protein a little bit later in the day. And there was this like myth for a long time. I think it actually, the show The Biggest Loser. I think it was this that Julian, the trainer or whatever. It was her name, Julian? I don't know if that was her name, but anyways,
It's something like that.
she came out with something that you had to get protein in you 45 minutes after your workout. Like she said that.
Yeah. That's how they do. That was to sell protein powder.
That was like to
Oh, you got to get protein right after your workout.
yeah.
Great for freaking
You're like-
everyone working out. Now it's going to buy your protein.
Yeah.
Fantastic marketing.
It's the only way to do it. Is
Yeah.
that's why you have
Right.
chicken
Your
breast
gains are
sitting
going
right
to be,
there.
you're not going to get any gains if you don't, right?
Yeah, if you don't, you need a within 45 minutes of your
Yeah,
workout. But
yeah.
I mean, the reality is that's not true. Your body can utilize it whenever, wherever. For my understanding, and I think it's something that you educated me on, was it's in the cadence of a week that you could measure what your total protein. I do it daily, but what your protein intake is by the week. Is that
Daily
correct?
tends to be easier because then you're dividing by 7 like over a week. But
Yeah.
there's like, I think back and forth research too, but they showed that like by getting like you can have a day that's less, right? Maybe you're not as optimal on your protein or you're a little underfed that day, but then the rest of the days are either optimal or above. Maybe it kind of averages out over the span of a week. And so, not beating yourself up if you're like, man, I didn't hit my goal today. Kind of what we were talking about with our guys in our cohort with the optimizers. Like one guy was like, I didn't get my protein goal in today, but yesterday I overdid it. I'm like, it's cool, man. Like, you're gonna be okay.
Yeah.
You're not
It
gonna.
ties into like the perfectionist mindset.
Yeah.
And that's a really good thing to say. Let's do progress. Let's not go for perfection because that's another stressor.
That's right. Yeah.
For
Then you're
sure.
overwhelmed and you quit.
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
I want to talk about this because it's something that I think is important, and I think that you really build on in your book as well. But it is that portion between men and women that obviously as we age, our protein intake goes down, from my understanding, as far as where like data says, right?
But it should go up.
And it should go up technically. But like for me specifically, I wanted to make sure, I was depleted in glycative supply. So I actually had a couple nudes before the show so that I could be
Me
well
too.
optimized for you. So
Guys, I didn't get mine.
we need to hook you up.
We do that
But
all
I
the
knew
time.
I have an elk protein mac and cheese meal that I'm going to be eating later in the day. But I knew that would that would just legitimately, that would like slow me down. So I wanted to be like well optimized, getting my protein intake. Is that something like you're really pushing on? I know you focus on fats too, but like that protein intake, pushing kind of the protein, that's what we're focusing on with our guys and our optimize. We want to focus on fats and carbs. Absolutely. We want to focus on those. But proportionally we have a protein target for them. And then we really, those days that they're obviously working out, I tend to focus a little bit more on my carbohydrates because I want to make sure like I'm maintaining my glycative supply still pretty sharp. And then I'll get my protein in. On the days I like actually am not working out, which I've increased that a little bit, I tend to focus on a little bit heavier meals throughout the day. But can you talk a little bit just about protein specifically and like how imperative that is kind of for the long term and longevity?
I like to just take a step back and I like to just focus on foundational 4. So that's high quality protein, healthy fat, plant-based fiber, and then something green or colorful. So I try to keep it as simple as possible because I think people get super overwhelmed with, am I counting my macros? Am I getting this? Am I getting that? So I try to keep it simple because I don't want to add more stress.
You're talking like per meal. You're like in
per
a meal,
per
hit the
snack.
4.
Like let's get those 4.
Got it.
Every time you eat, let's get those 4 in. And then specifically to protein, so if you're getting all 4 of those in every meal and snack, like you're going to cover the bases. And I like the week kind of averaging it out so you're not stressing yourself every single day. Like, oh, I missed my mark. But specifically to protein, I think the quality is where we need to go. So highest quality, what is that? That's grass-fed red meat, including organs. I am a fan of eating organs.
Liver, baby. Let's go.
Liver, yes.
Highest,
Yes.
Nutrient bioavailable.
It's not the
organ.
palate for me.
had
I
some
don't. But
Discussions with this with one of our instructors in school with
Shri. Yeah. He was like, it's a filter. It filters all the toxins. Why would you want to eat that? I'm like, I don't know, bro.
It's nutrient dense.
Yeah.
So if you don't want to eat it, there's obviously some high quality capsule forms you can get it in as well. But for that, so that's for red meat, and then any type of poultry, eggs, organic. There's a lot of marketing around free range. And I just want to touch on what that means really quickly. So my husband and I travel a lot in the U.S. and internationally as well. We have an Airstream here, and we stay on farms and different things. And I've talked with farmers, and they've showed me the facilities if they're free-range chickens. And it literally, if they have this tiny little space where they could put their little leg out, that means free-range.
If the chicken's not in a box, it's free-range,
well, there's cage-free, and then there's free-range. So
Right.
Cage-free means they're not in the individual little.
They can actually move their
coops.
bodies.
They can actually move their body, but it doesn't mean that they're. I have this image of chickens running in a field and happy chickens out in the sunshine.
That's pasture raised, right?
That would be pasture raised. So organic pasture raised would be the highest.
Pinnacle.
Yeah.
And those yolks are freaking orange when you get an organic pasture raised, because they're eating worms, they're eating grubs, like they're eating like real stuff.
They're eating what they are made.
They're getting a lot of omegas into there, and so that yolk, man.
Yeah. So they're going to be raw. They're going to be healthier, which means what you consume is going to be healthier. You're eating it raw.
I eat 3 raw eggs every morning.
Okay. All right.
Sometimes at night too.
All right.
Yeah.
That's why your beard is orange, right?
That's right, baby. Let's go.
And then for any type of seafood, wild caught. So we could dive into hours discussion on farm raised seafood. Just if it says farm raised, just don't eat it. It is not good for your health. Those creatures are unfortunately fed diets that are natural to them. The agriculture industry is the highest consumer of prescription medications in this country. So let that kind of sink in for a second.
Wow. As always, this episode is brought to you by Nutritious, convenient optimized superfood nutrition powered by Nutropix, designed to elevate your physical and mental performance no matter what life throws at you. Nutritious has been proven to improve cognition, boost memory, and speed up mental and physical processing. Alfie, tell everyone where they can get it.
Yep, head on over to nutup.com to experience these benefits for yourself and live beyond limits today.
I heard something recently about fiber too, and I had a little hack with my protein. So I put lion's mane on all of it. I just basically put mushrooms. I think you've seen me do it. I'll just put it over top to just get that protein get the fiber intake. My understanding on fiber, we are significantly deficient from just at a global scale.
Insanely
of fiber.
Deficient. Yes.
Fibers in our diet, and an adequate amount of fiber on a daily basis is 20 grams. A sufficient is 60.
Am
I wrong on that?
Well, the recommendation is kind of in the middle of that. So 30 to 40 grams. So I think you're hitting each side of it. Okay. We alluded to the blue zones earlier, so I will touch on a little bit of that because I do follow what they're doing because I feel like they have some great nuggets to share.
For sure. Yeah.
And what they've studied is the longest living communities that are living optimal life or health span, not just lifespan, which is super important to
critical
is the fact that they're consuming 60, 70, 80 grams of plant-based fiber a day, which is just mind-blowing. That's a lot of fiber.
And that fills you up too, right? So that keeps you satiated.
Yes.
You're not going to snack and binge.
And actually, a higher fiber, plant-based fiber diet addresses 4 of the top 10 killers in the U.S. That's metabolic diseases, strokes, heart disease, and cancer risk. Yeah. All majorly decreased when you are consuming enough plant-based fiber. Now, cautionary, don't run out and grab a tub of Metamucil because that's not going to do the job.
Processed, yeah.
That's highly processed. We're talking about plants. We're talking about legumes. One of my favorites is chickpeas. So a cup of chickpeas, that's 12, 15 grams of plant-based fiber right off the bat.
And that's protein too. So
and plant-based protein.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I actually will dump some into the blender first when I make a smoothie because it doesn't add any taste to it.
Nice.
And it gives it a little bit more thickens it up a little bit, and you get the plant-based fiber and protein right there right off the bat.
I'm going to do that. I've never heard of that before.
You're welcome.
Here we go.
There you go. You learned something new today.
Right. And I think a lot of the summary of a lot of what we're talking about is optimal versus adequate. You said the word adequate. You go to your doctor, let's circle back to the beginning when you told your story, right? Oh, you're good. Dude, I feel lousy. Well, if the range is 100, is 20 at the bottom and 100 at the top, and you're at 21, you're within range. You're adequate, baby. You're good. dude, you're one away from being freaking out of range, right? So like that's functional medicine is like, no, we want to get that to the top of the top, baby. And that's hormones, that's all markers, right? We don't want to just be existing.
Totally different because the lab ranges were defined based on a sick population because that's who was in the hospital.
And they change them.
And they change them.
As we get sicker as a population, they're like, well, let's just lower the standards so that people can, fit in it still, or else we have to address the fact that everyone's dying and sick, right?
And we can medicate them sooner.
Boom.
That's what I've been. That's what I ask. I've actually asked this quite often lately. I'm like point blank, and I'm like, I don't mean to be like just extremely forward with you, but since when do you want to be average? Like, don't you want to be like above average or optimal? Like, said no one ever. Like, hey, do you want to be average in life?
I just want to get by.
Said no one ever. Like, so if you ask that question, they're like, well, yeah, I actually didn't want to be average. You know what I mean? I called out my dad the other day. I'm like, I poor dad, but like, I'm like, look, back into your life, I love like my parents immeasurably, and that so I say it in an act of love, but again, I'm like pretty forward. But I'm like, do you want to finish, or do you just want to finish, or do you want to finish well? And so I think there's two separations there. Like if you're just looking to finish, like this retirement life, sit down, eat a bag of potato chips, and watch some Hallmark movies, like I wouldn't call that finishing well, bro. So I don't mean to call you out, Dad, but I'm still calling you out.
Oh, I looked right at him.
And dead in the eyes, Dad. Dead in the eyes. But the reality is that it's like no matter what age, I don't know when God's going to call me home, but I don't want to be average. Like, and that's why we're diving into this field of like, what does it mean to be optimized? And if it means putting a little more fiber in your diet, like as a simple measure, like if there's one action you can take today of like putting some chickpeas in a blender, how hard is that? Like it's some really cool things that you can just take away that create a different narrative for your life and how you finish it well. So I don't know.
I mean, I fully believe that we were meant to thrive. Not just survive. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of people are just scraping by and surviving. And there are simple things, like you mentioned, little hacks that we can do every day to just move that needle a little bit and get us to that thriving so we can prosper, so we can live a life we love.
I love that. Well, what's coming up for you? Anything new in the works? Another book or
TV?
Jeez, you've been all over TV and stuff.
I actually have another episode that we just recorded last week, an actual entire cooking show, which I'm super excited about, which I've never done before. So that was...
What network?
That's on Fox 13.
Fox 13. That's awesome.
Yes. So
do you want to drop when it's going to be, or do you know yet?
Yeah, it should air on the 27th. I don't know when this episode is going to air, but that's coming out the 27th. And then I am doing a digestive detective program where, as a group, we dive into our microbiome. And we do a stool test, and we dive into all the imbalances within our body and things that we can do to optimize that. So we do that. We don't collectively poop as a group, but I do call it
group poop.
You poop at home. We discuss the results as a group, and then I make customized recommendations based on that. So I have another session of that coming up, launching beginning of March, and then just some amazing educational opportunities to just share and empower, and hopefully take the message international this year too.
Man, we're definitely going to bring you back on so we can get like in depth on a lot of the stuff we talked about today. Man, if you're listening and you got some value out of the show, which if you didn't, then I don't know, maybe you're deaf, like right? But like, check out Dr. Anya. Where can they find you online and Instagram, and kind of give us where we can look you up?
Yeah, my Instagram is Dr. Anya Szigeti. So fun being able to spell that, but Szigeti. I'm sure we'll link that in the show notes. Yep. It's probably the best place. I have an amazing person that's helping me out with that, just to get the message out with that, because I'm terrible with social media, and she's amazing. So that's probably the best avenue.
You're like going into grocery stores and calling out like crappy food.
I'm going into grocery stores and calling out stuff. I did a whole thing on bacon recently. And I love to hear where people are having questions so that I can make sure that I'm getting the content out that people want. And actually, you're inspiring me. I've had several people ask me to start a podcast, so I'm looking into that.
Awesome.
So hopefully I put this on myself to launch that in the next month.
It's a great platform for just spreading this knowledge, man, and this right here, right? And if you obviously listen to this, go get You Can't Outrun Your Fork, the book here about how nutrition is, pivotal. Yeah, great book. Tons of recipes. I'm about to go make some of that power cave right now, man. But that's awesome. So I got one last question and we'll wrap up. I ask this every guest we have. You have your 12 things that you talked about, the 12 kind of optimized things. We have 6 pillars: fuel, movement, sleep, mind, purpose, and spirit. And so we believe that to live full fueled, if you have all these pillars optimized, you are full fueled. What does living full fueled look like for Anya Szigeti?
That is amazing. I mean, that covers into the majority of what I cover as well in the Szigeti Method. So for me, that is being present. That is being there, showing up 100% for myself, for my husband, for my miniature dachshund Milo, who travels everywhere with us, including Europe twice. And if I'm not showing up 110% for myself, then I can't be there to help anyone else, because you can't pour from an empty vessel. I tried for years, and it's not possible.
Right.
So that's making sure that, I'm starting my day with sunlight. I'm getting fresh water. My nutrition's on point. I'm taking time for mindfulness. I do a lot of yoga meditation that just really helps to clear my mind and keep me balanced. I have a personal relationship with the Lord, and so that helps guide my purpose. And I really feel like He has, took me on this journey, and I'm His vessel to be able to help empower others. And so living through that just really gives me goosebumps, and just really fuels me every day.
Smash that answer. That was amazing. Anya Szigeti is full fueled to the brim, dude.
She is full fueled. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. It has been an extreme pleasure. It really has.
Guys.
Thank you
It's
so
been great.
much. Live full fueled. Live beyond limits, baby.